So it's getting recorded. Hey all, on behalf of Hyperledger India Chapter and Hyperledger in Asia Pacific, we welcome you to the second version or second part of Blockchain Stories 2020. We would like to welcome you to our one of the most spoken about event in this summer. This event all started with an initiative where Hyperledger India chapter volunteers wanted to help bridge the community with the enterprises themselves. And there were people who are asking questions on how to use blockchain technology in production, or how is it being helpful in some of their projects, or just to learn about what all fields can blockchain technology be helpful in, right? And also we now have so many organizations monetizing the blockchain technology, and also share or spread information about their technology to a larger quorum. So that's how the initiative started. And as part of Hyperledger India chapter, we do organize weekly calls on Wednesdays at 3 o'clock. And we request you to visit wiki page to learn more about us, and also to learn more about Hyperledger in general. And yeah, so here we are today. And for our today's first topic, we would like to welcome our speaker from Pyse, Kaustubh. And Kaustubh is a co-founder of Pyse. And I will let Kaustubh you introduce and kickstart the session.
Yeah, thanks a
Welcome.
lot. Thanks a lot, Arun. Shall I share my screen if it's fine? Yeah, I hope the screen's visible.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, great, guys. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon for everyone not in India. Super excited about having to talk about what we do, right? We're an early stage startup, and for the Indians on the call, I'm pretty sure by looking at the name, you would have figured out that we're a fintech company, right? We were supposed to do this presentation last week, and everything that could have gone wrong went wrong for us. Who knew the odds of having the internet connection go off just a few minutes before the presentation were pretty high, right? The odds were pretty high. But seriously though, a huge thanks to the Hyperledger Indian chapter to give an early stage startup like us a forum like this, right? To be able to talk and be in the same level of panelists as people from HCL and Oracle. Huge thank you. Before we get into the specifics, right? If I really had to condense down and let you guys know what we do, right? I'd pretty much say that we create a special avenue for investors and people to put their money into something, let it grow, and have people care about it, right? We want to make people proud about their investments, and we let them invest into a purpose that people care about. Which basically makes us a fintech product that creates impact, right? Pretty nifty combination that you've probably not seen in market today. Before we get into the specifics, right, I'd like you to introduce the entire team that we have. It's a very small team, but super dedicated. Myself, my name is Kaustubh. I have my co-founder Vinay, who's a part of the attendees too. The two of us just graduated college about a year and a half back, right? We've been super passionate and super excited to work within the whole blockchain industry in terms of the technology and the business values it offers. And a lot of what we build today, you'll see how it revolves around the values that is derived from the technology itself. We also have Anurag Jha, who is one of who's basically the financial analyst of our team, right? He takes care of the entire fin part of the fintech. We are also backed by an amazing mentorship group, as well as early investors who help keep this entire product up and running, right? Help us build and create and fulfill our vision, basically. So what exactly are the problems we solve? Now, you obviously know what we do, right? We told that we create an avenue for people to invest. That's pretty much every other investment platform. That's pretty much every other fintech platform. The core problems that we try to tackle basically condensed to these points, right? Today in the Indian retail market, there's a serious lack of liquidity in the investment market itself, right? You don't see a lot of investment products having the same amount of liquidity and no exit entry barriers for retail investors and choices. There aren't exactly a lot of products that provide a good balance between these high returns and low volatility, right? Usually you try to think of saying that if there is a product that ends up giving a high return, it's usually pretty volatile, which is basically your equity market, right? Most importantly, right, one of the weird psyches and psychological behaviors we've observed is for people who actually put money into things like gadgets and cars and trophies, they actually go out and brag about it. They talk about it. Why is it that when it comes to investments in general, it's usually a best kept secret, right? You don't really know when someone or someone in your friend circle has probably invested in a fixed deposit. No one really comes and talks about it. There isn't exactly a purpose that people care about. But at the same time, when you look at things today, right, when it comes to the whole sustainability sector, which could either be the whole greening of the environment thing, people brag about it, people talk about it. You see people going on marathons, carpooling. You see people going out and using hashtags on social network, right? There's a general momentum in these emotions, and it's pretty much visible. So that is actually a huge problem, saying why isn't there an emotional attachment with the investments people make? And what I think is the fundamental of our business is there are a lot of long-term and mid-term investment products. Where exactly are these short-term investment products? Where can I get these 90 to 120 day returns, right? There aren't exactly those avenues available readily for retail investors, primarily because of the ticket sizes that are usually pretty high and the entry barriers being high, therefore. And a lot of the trends that you see right now in terms of the whole banking sector and market, you'd see people are actually losing trust, right, in the entire banking infrastructure. In India itself, you've probably seen the whole Yes Bank fiasco, right? People are losing more trust in private sector banks. You also see smaller banks and cooperative banks defaulting. In general, there's a distrust that exists within the whole ecosystem itself. What all of these problems actually do is they put us in a very unique situation as a business, right? It allows us to create a product that people haven't really used or experienced before. And a lot of this product that we've built revolves around the business values derived out of blockchain, and you'll see more about it. One of the things I think to be little candid about where we came in or why exactly blockchain became critical to our problem statement and what we are solving, I think can be brought down to the whole popularity curve, right? If I were to plot the whole blockchain popularity across years, you'd see a trend somewhat similar to this, right? The early 2009 to 2012 is the period where Bitcoin started coming in. It was there, it was huge. People spoke about it, but the prices were usually around the $31 to $40 mark, and there wasn't that much buzz to it. Around the late 2012, early 2013, there was buzz about Ethereum, right? That is where people started understanding that, okay, there could be more business value to blockchain beyond just being a cryptocurrency. And from there on, with the whole Bitcoin bubble bursting up, you see that the $1,000 mark reaching, right? You see Bitcoins reaching the $1,000 mark. More and more people started talking about it. It started entering into the whole mainstream discussion. And immediately followed after that, you'll see the fall, right? Now, the valley that you see over here, the early 2015, I guess that is where my co-founder and I actually came in, right? This was around the time where we started experimenting with blockchain. Now, for many, you might say that this is actually the lowest point and not exactly the exciting time to come into this technology. But at this point, a lot of the value that blockchain has to deliver was distilled down to reality, right? It was not just, so at this point, blockchain wasn't exactly stereotyped as a cryptocurrency anymore. And at the same time, with the advent of Hyperledger or Ethereum smart contracts, you actually started seeing a lot more business use cases coming forward, which is why you'll see from 2015 onwards, the trend has been pretty steady with larger companies as well as smaller companies and startups adopting blockchain for the true value that it has to provide. Now, what is unique about Pyse is we established ourselves sometime around the late 2019 and 2020, early 2020, right? And the trend at this time, by now, all of the companies have already established that blockchain is an immutable ledger, append only. You have, the whole immutability part of it. It was all established already. What I think is the trend moving forward is the idea of establishing a true definition for trust, and most importantly, the whole idea of internet of value, which is where you'll see a lot of our solutions coming forward, right? One of the things in Pyse as an early stage startup or a team, we've decided, right, is we want to build technology that has purpose. So one of the things that happens with blockchain is a lot of stereotyping, right? You go to an investor, go tell them that you're talking about blockchain. They're like, okay, are you using it just because it's a buzzword? Right? And that's a pretty serious problem, because the problem exists in the fact that unlike AI, ML, AR, and VR, blockchain does not really have that outset product, right? The end product that people can look at and say, wow. A lot of what blockchain delivers is the core backbone of the economical infrastructure, right? It could be in terms of the efficiency of the way your product works, or the business value that is derived from the people who either use the technology or help keep your technology alive. So what we went ahead and did, and I think is a huge learning curve for us to defend the tech that we've built, is have three pillars created for our technology values. The three pillars that we really believe help accentuate our product are empowerment, governance, and democratization. And you'll see how blockchain has helped us achieve all of these three in various shapes and forms, right? Now, in terms of what we are as a product, in terms of what we are as a product, I guess we position ourselves as a fractionalization as a service product, right? We are inching closer and closer towards the internet of value future, where we try to say that transfer of ownership, right, and transfer of assets from one person to another should basically be as easy as transferring data between two people, right? And that is the model that we want to create and build. What we want to do is to create this fractionalization model that takes in any kind of revenue generating asset, put it inside a black box, abstract all the nitty gritties of those assets, be it the paperwork or the fact that they have to go to multiple other platforms to buy it, and give a retail investor a unified platform to look and invest into a product basis just simple factors, right? The returns it provides and the impact it's creating. Now, at this point of time, we actually focus on two primary assets, right? This is basically our starting asset portfolio. We're looking at invoice discounting for SMEs and SMBs, primarily because at this point of time, especially, you see a lot of credit crunch within the SME, SMB sectors, right? A lot of the money is locked inside these invoices. So this once again goes down to the fact of saying we want to empower these SMEs and SMBs, allowing them to free up their cash and have regular and proper cash flows. At the same time, another unique asset class to us is actually a renewable energy instrument. And you'll see how the renewable energy investments itself create this whole ecosystem of our functioning. Now, if I were to ask you guys how we create fractionalization as a service or how we do these fractionalization, I'm pretty sure your answer would be tokenization, right? And you guys are not wrong about it because that's exactly what we do. The token model that we have built for Pyse revolves around two levels, right? We have an identity token created and ownership tokens. Now, the invoice, or it could be a renewable energy asset, or it could be basically real estate, right? It doesn't really matter what asset it is. If you have a physical asset, we create a digital representation of it using an identity token. So an identity token is basically one token per asset, and it's exactly not fungible, right? The identity token, like I said, being a digital representation, basically has all of the characteristics of that physical asset. It could probably be the returns it provides, the source of that product, right? It could also be the last date or where the product perishes. If it's an invoice, it's usually 90 to 120 days, right? The general schema of the identity tokens remains the same across asset classes. So be it real estate, energy, or invoices, it doesn't really matter. We also have meta information that can be added onto this identity token to probably add more information specific to an asset. An identity token also represents at any point of time the list of all the owners of that asset. Now, every identity token is actually further related towards 100 ownership tokens. So what these ownership tokens basically do is exactly what the name suggests, right? It basically shows ownership of that specific asset. The number we've chosen 100 is primarily because it shows 100% ownership, right? One token basically represents 1% ownership of that asset. And the beauty of this whole product is we can actually further fractionalize that one token down to the 18th decimal. And the number is pretty uniquely chosen because that's the point at which we realize that auditing becomes really difficult, right? And managing funds. Now you see that when I told you the entry barrier for such investments, short-term investments, were pretty high, because we're able to tokenize this and bring this down to a lowest fractional problem, we are basically creating and reducing the entry barrier for people. We are allowing people to probably invest an amount as low as 1 rupee and gain the same returns that you would if you were to invest a lakh or 2 lakhs or 3 lakhs, right? Now, our smart contract's pretty simple in terms of what it does. We have asset onboarding and creation of the identity tokens itself. We have investor identity creations, buy and sell of the ownership tokens, valuation, real-time valuation of the ownership tokens itself, and we also burn the tokens, right? And one of the things we do here is because we use blockchain, right? The events that are generated basis transfer of ownership, selling, and buying also helps us generate e-invoices down outside for the physical governance mechanisms. What we basically done now is, irrespective of the diversity in the asset classes, we've basically created one fractional model, allowing any retail buyer to just land onto our platform, choose which product he wants basis the returns it gives and the impact it creates, and put all of it in one wallet, right? It's just one single mechanism instead of having multiple paperworks as well as multiple platforms to go in and invest. Now coming down to what I told was a unique asset, right? What is very unique about us is the renewable energy assets. Now, renewable energy assets are unique for multiple reasons, right? One could be basically the impact that it creates, the fact that the amount of carbon it sequesters is pretty high. The kind of environmental impact it has is very high, right? Now, these renewable energy assets are pretty expensive. They are capital heavy, right? Any form of investment for that matter into the sustainability sector is pretty high. If you were to go tomorrow and say that I'm going to buy an electric vehicle, it is still not economically enough for a retail investor to put money into it. What generally happens in this whole renewable energy sector is an asset developer, that is the person who establishes this renewable energy asset, raises capital from banks, usually as loans, to set this whole infrastructure and plan out, right? To set up the whole solar plant, for example. There's usually a creditworthy customer on the other hand that consumes the electricity from this asset and pays back the asset developer for the amount of electricity consumed. Now, this basically sounds like any other typical electricity management system, right? But what is very unique about this product is an agreement called a PPA, or a power purchase agreement, right? That brings stability to this whole function. Now, what a PPA does is it's basically a 25-year contract. It's a very long-term contract, right? What the long-term contract states is that there is a fixed price per unit for that entire period of time. So for 25 years, the customer, on the other hand, has to continue to pay the exact amount per unit that he's consumed. This basically means that the whole product in terms of returns is not exactly volatile, and it still provides a return on investments as high as around 10 to 15%, which means that for all the Indians on the call, while your fixed deposits are depreciating in value and your savings bank accounts are actually reducing the amount of returns that they give, 10 to 15% is actually pretty high. But the very unique characteristics of this PPA, the fact that it's secure, the fact that it's long-term, the fact that it gives a fixed rate of return, helped us create a commodity-backed stablecoin, right? Now, a commodity-backed stablecoin here is basically a stablecoin that is backed by a renewable energy asset. For our first set of users who are coming in, the closed alpha that we're going to build, is basically going to be backed by solar assets, right? The beauty of this whole thing is that it exactly works like alternative gold. Your investments are just as safe as gold. And what is even more amusing about this whole thing is the fact that it gives return on investments as high as 10 to 15%. This stable coin actually appreciates in value year on year. Now, it is this stable coin that helps create the whole ecosystem around our product, right? Be it incentive mechanisms, or be it just a product that retail investors can come in and buy. This actually helped us create a long-term investment product similar to gold, but a little more stable and guaranteed appreciation year on year. Now, getting into more specifics of what is unique about a network and what exactly we're looking at for the coming few years, right? Now, blockchain, I'm pretty sure for people who are coming in from startups, or if you're just someone who's looking at saying, okay, I need to implement blockchain in my organization. The first question that comes forward is, should I use a public blockchain, or should I use a private blockchain, right? And I'm pretty sure the first thing you would have done is gone to Google and typed that out. You would have found a plethora of websites that give you this, difference between the two sort of a figure that says public blockchain does this, private blockchain does this, right? It's like your back and forth standard. But the choice of what kind of network you're going to use for your company, right, or for the organization or problem you're solving, we figured was a little more complex than that. Now, in terms of Indians, right, we believe in trust in a completely different way. We have a completely different definition of trust. We don't really see trust or value in saying that there are a million validating peers on a public blockchain network. We actually put our trust into larger organizations and brands we care about. Now, if I were to give you, let's say, SMVK Steel versus Tata Steel, you're obviously going to choose Tata, right? And that's how we are all brought up, right? We are always brought up in this family of saying that these are the larger brands, these are the people we trust, this is who are reliable, right? We are always brought up in a family that says that, okay, trust government-backed banks and not private banks and things like that. But our idea of trust is very unique, right? What it basically says is we put our trust in these larger brands. So why is it that when we're building this network, we shouldn't capitalize on that fact? So what we've done is create a private permission blockchain plus. We're actually in talks with a lot of startups here in Bangalore who are actually seeing value in using blockchain, creating a consortium where there's a win-win for all of us, right? The idea is that as and when more and more validating peers start joining in, we could probably even open this up as a blockchain as a service product, which allows newer people to come in without having to bother about the infrastructure that they want to build. Use our infrastructure to actually build and use the smart contracts that they want, making this whole product entirely economical in a lot of ways, right? What is core to what we're doing here is trust, right? And that's the value. That's one of the core values of blockchain that we really want to work on. And that is really what we want to make the center of our product, trust. Being a startup and an unknown name, most importantly, going out and telling people that, hey, listen, we are a brand new fintech product, give us $1,000 and you'll get returns of 10%, is a very difficult thing to do. Primarily because we end up looking like one of those Nigerian scamsters, right? Where there's a Nigerian prince sending mails. We sound exactly like them. But what blockchain allows us to do is to build that value of trust and get people to understand why our product is just as secure, provides just as much value as the other products that they work or use right now. Now, in the theme of empowerment, right, considering that we're building such a big network, considering that we're getting more and more of these validating peers to join a consortium, to build empowerment and say that we empower not just the people who use our platform, but also the people who help keep our platform afloat is very important to us, right? One of our suppliers are basically the SMEs and MSMEs who give us the invoices that get discounted. What exactly can we do with the infrastructure we have to help them out? Now, SMEs and MSMEs, to be very clear, basically make up 40% of our GDP, right? So they're backbone, a huge backbone of our economy. But at the same time, you see that a lot of these people are actually at risk right now with no credit mechanisms, right? They don't have credit checks. Most importantly, they don't even have a digital footprint, right? Only about 6% of SMEs in India are actually digital right now, are adopting digital mechanisms. So what is it that we can do on our infrastructure that provides value to them? And that is what we wanted to create, a digital value identity. One of the aims for the coming quarter for us is to actually reach out to SMEs and MSMEs, which are not exactly recognized by a lot of people. We're working alongside with some really good teams to build a credit model that helps creating a digital footprint for these MSMEs, right? What allows us to do here is when we start creating these digital footprints for these MSMEs and SMEs, we are creating a single identity, a distributed identity, which has all of their behavioral histories, their credit rating. And what allows us to do is in the future, we can actually thinking of partnering out with other banks and other financial platforms, making us probably a single sign-on mechanism for them, right? Moreover, a lot of the vendors and SMEs, one of the biggest problems they face is the enterprises that they reach out to, right? They take easily about 60 to 90 days to figure out which vendor of their choice should get onboarded for their company. But with an identity like this, it should be, and with behavioral history all packed in, it should become a little more easier for enterprises to make a choice or a judgment on who exactly should start coming in onto this platform or who exactly should start helping them in their problems, right? So that's pretty much it in terms of what we're building. We want to build a network that accentuates a value of trust to users, and that is what we're focusing on. Like I said, the whole idea of having an immutable ledger, having an append-only ledger has already been established. We have to move forward in terms of adoption. What we believe today is one of the serious problems we're facing right now is we should start communicating value with people. One of the things that I read online a few days back, one of the great influences for blockchain was we should be less competitive and more cooperative, right? And that is basically creating collaboration as the next or the future of organizational benefits, right? Seeing how we can create a bigger pot that has more value for everyone that transacts and talks with us. That's pretty much it. If I had to give a few takeaways for the people on the call who are probably thinking of starting up their own business, who think that, okay, there could be value in using blockchain, or you're probably just someone in a company who thinks blockchain could help make your organization better and you want to sell it to a higher up. Here are the things that I have in mind, right? Blockchain, and these are things that we learned throughout the course of these years. Blockchain does not really have a perceivable output like AI, ML, AR, and VR, right? You don't really have the wow factor. What it basically does is completely transform a B2B or a B2C economic landscape. So this means you need to actually be very clear in trying to point out what exactly are the business values derived by using blockchain. Stereotyping is a huge issue. You'll talk to people who will come out and say that, okay, isn't this just another cryptocurrency that you're building? Or isn't this just another buzzword that you're using? But to defend such a thing, if you really believe that there are those business values that help you create that distinct advantage in the market, go ahead and point that out. Today, what we should really be working on is furthering adoption and building networks. This means that companies should actually start working, and startups usually, should actually start working on understanding incentive mechanisms that make sense, right? We can't just go to another person and say, hey, just become a validating peer without having to tell him exactly what the values he gets by joining such a network. Being a smaller and agile team gives us a huge advantage, right? Being agile basically allows us to experiment a lot of these new products quickly. And I'm pretty sure 6 months down the line, if Hyperledger India chapter comes in and says, we're going to do a new blockchain stories 2021, I might probably come on a call right now and tell everything that I've told here. None of this probably worked out. But that's the beauty of being in an agile team, because there's a lot of new experiments and ideas that we can put out, try out as an MVP, and come back and tell you guys whether it works or not. And most importantly, if you are a smaller team, blockchain is basically a no-brainer to use as a coupling product or a technology, right? Because considering you're a smaller team that's unrecognized by people, if you end up joining a network or networking with people which people care about, or brands that people care about, a lot of their trust gets inherited by you. right? So you inherit their trust, thus going to your customers and talking to them more about the value you deliver without having to worry about, oh, wait, I'm a new company. Will people listen to me or not? So to summarize the whole thing, this is basically our infrastructure, right? Now, I know a lot of this discussion has been more about the business use cases, less about the tech that's there. That was pretty intentional, because what I believe is, in terms of blockchain as a product, companies should actually start talking more about how exactly we can build adoption and what exactly are the values and how we communicate those values, a lot more than this does this, right? In terms of the technology, which is great in every way. So yeah, we have a fintech platform, we have a stable coin backed by renewable energy assets, we have trusted validators whom we are in contact with and talking. We are looking out to create a permission blockchain as a service in the future as a byproduct of what we're building. And SME bill discounting and value identity creation is something that furthers our idea of empowerment, right? We are currently in we are currently in the process of getting all of this into picture. We are going to roll out a closed alpha soon. We're getting more people, retail investors, to come in and start a smaller pool of testing. We are also looking at an open release somewhere towards the end of the year, right? But if there's anything that you guys want to talk about, if there's any form of collaboration or help, right, that you can give us, or is some value that we can give you, please feel free to go to pyse.in, and we're always available to have a chat with you, right? Our idea is to make your investments a conversation, and that's the theme of it, right? When people don't really talk about the investments they do, our idea is that when you actually invest in impact, be it the technology that we're building or the product that we have, we want you to feel proud about it and go talk about it. So yeah, thanks a lot again to Hyperledger India Chapter. Once again, couldn't have expected a better forum to, you know, showcase what we're doing. Being an early stage startup, again, it's a huge boost to actually talk to all of you guys. So yeah, Arun, thanks a lot. I'm pretty sure I ate up a lot of the other speakers' times too. So if there are any questions, I'll just probably go in and answer it in the chat.
Yeah, thank you, Kaustubh. So there are a couple of questions, so maybe you can answer in the chat.
Yeah, I'll do that in the chat.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So the next topic we have from the Oracle blockchain team. So the Oracle blockchain platform is enterprise managed blockchain service, and is a very good platform to integrate with the ERP and the analytics team. So we have from the Ravi Pinto and Srinivas from the Oracle blockchain team to show how and what they are building the different solutions with their clients. Over to you, Pinto.
Thanks, Kamlesh. Just give me 1 second. I did share my screen, but I realized I've done something wrong. So
Okay.
let me just bring it back. Okay. All right. I hope I'm audible and visible. Not me, but my presentation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks a lot, Hyperledger India Chapter, for inviting us and giving us a platform to talk about, you know, what we've been doing with our customers and with startups, etc. Most of all, Oracle is known as a database company, right? So what exactly are we doing in blockchain? I hope I will give you some idea about that. But more importantly, I want to focus on what our customers and partners are doing with our technology. On the panel with me is Srihari, and Srihari is, you know, has been part of the solution group that that helps partners and customers in adopting our blockchain technology, while I belong to product development and specifically product management team based out of Bangalore. And I hope this session is going to be useful to you. So before we start with the customer stories themselves, I want you to have an idea of what Oracle's been doing with blockchain technology. So it's not something very new that we are doing. We actually started looking at blockchain way back in 2015 when we started identifying where exactly would it fit in our enterprise customer background, right? Oracle's always been focused on enterprise customers and making our partners successful with those enterprise customers. So we started investigating that and evaluating different technologies that were, or technology platforms that were available, including Fabric as well as Ethereum. And then we decided that we will go with Hyperledger Fabric as the basis of the offering that we built. So compliant to that, what we did was we joined Hyperledger, as a member, and we started, or rather announced, our blockchain platform in open world in 2017. Early in 2018, we started an early access program, and then we talked about a beta program, made it available so that customers and partners could get, a peek at what we were building, provide certain feedback. And then in 2018 open world, we announced and made it generally available. We were able to get our first customers reach production by mid of 2019, which is very, very important to understand, from the perspective of the productivity that we brought to these projects, right? They not only built their applications, tested it, and did everything that is required through the development cycle, but going into production within about 6 months of time was a testimony to the fact that we did the right thing. And then what we've been doing is actually building on that particular platform. So we started building an entire SaaS application on top of our platform, which is called Intelligent Track and Trace. And also what we did was we realized that, or understood that, a lot of customers require something that is on premises. They are not able to use our cloud offering. And we provided, or we created the on-prem version of our software. And what we are doing now is we are making it, OCI native, which is our Gen 2 infrastructure in cloud. And what that enables the blockchain platform to do is leverage the cloud native technologies that have been built on the OCI platform and make it available for your applications on top. And from the perspective of the customer momentum, as you can see in this particular slide, we've, like I said, early 2019, customers started going live. And some of them were, customers like the Arab Jordan Investment Bank, Certified Origins for an olive oil company in Italy, post that CargoSmart, and I'll talk about CargoSmart in a little while. Today, we have customers who are using the blockchain platform and are reaping benefits of it, and we continue to add more and more. We also focus on startups which are building their solution on blockchain by making available a platform that is, that can scale with their business. So what exactly do we do with Hyperledger Fabric? What we do is we've taken Hyperledger Fabric as the basis of our offering, and then we've added enterprise grade components around it. We make it available as a service, so you subscribe to it. You don't need to necessarily purchase license and deploy. You have an option to do that as well. And we also have built-in smarts into it so that you can connect it to different applications that any blockchain network would need to do. Which means that it's easy to deploy. All you need to do is provision it using a wizard. It is easy to integrate with back office applications. Very easy for you to onboard the partners onto this particular blockchain network because we make it very easy for you to manage and monitor this entire setup. This is sort of gives you an idea about what this product is all about. So as you can see, we've got this, the fabric, which is core of the service offering. And on top of that, we have, certain interfaces like the REST APIs, the SDKs for different programming languages. We have an offering called integration, Oracle integration that enables you to talk to multiple on-prem and SaaS applications. And what we do under this, like I mentioned, is we use the Gen 2 infrastructure that's available from OCI. This enables us to talk to third-party cloud deployed Hyperledger Fabric peers or networks, as well as the ones running on-prem. And I'll talk a little bit more about in subsequent slide. What we bring to the table, or the enhancement sort of what we've done, as value add for making this particular platform, for our available for our customers, is we've added some features on the distributed ledger technology itself, and then we've also done some optimizations underneath, that particular offering in terms of what we use from OCI over here. So we've added REST proxies, so you basically don't have to bother with specifically downloading SDKs if you do not really want. You can just invoke the REST proxies. We provide a full-fledged management console that enables you to add members, that enables you to keep track of the transactions that are happening, that enables you to understand what the health of your network is, enables you to deploy smart contracts, version them, decide which channel you want to deploy it on, etc., right? And what we also did was when we did performance benchmarks and started working with our customers, we realized that the ledger or the CouchDB were not really scalable, and therefore we replaced it with BarclayDB, which is again a key value based NoSQL offering that's available from us, and it's an open source offering that that you can take a look at on the Oracle website. We've also done something beyond, which is we've added the capability for you to have analytics done through this particular, all the data that's coming into blockchain by making the transaction, by shadowing the transactions into an Oracle database. So what that essentially means is you do not overload the running blockchain network because you want to generate certain analytics of all the transactions. Under the DLT, what we've done is the provisioning and integration. Provisioning happens on Oracle Cloud. It's an Oracle managed service, so you don't really have to bother about setting the entire Hyperledger Fabric, download it and run it in a VM, etc. You just, like I mentioned, provision it using a wizard. As I mentioned, we've taken the same core offering and we've created an on-prem deployment version of it, which we call as Oracle Blockchain Platform Enterprise Edition. This can be deployed totally in your data center, and it can talk to other Oracle Blockchain Enterprise Edition instances, or it can talk to third-party Hyperledger Fabric based networks as well. What that essentially means then is that you can create or integrate with blockchain networks that are either running on Oracle Cloud or running somewhere else, and that somewhere else could be some other cloud, or it can be on-prem. As long as you have Hyperledger Fabric powering that particular blockchain network, we can talk to and create a network of networks, if you will. So this is something that we feel is pretty exciting and gives our customers and partners the ability to go beyond just their own network or just their own deployment. So like I mentioned, I wanted to give you an idea about what Oracle's doing in terms of blockchain offering, and then go over into the examples. Now we do have a lot of examples, and I'll try not to go overboard with the time that has been allotted to me. And you can always refer to these use cases. I have some resources that I will share with you that give you an idea about more of these. If you see in this particular slide and the subsequent one that I'll show you, we've categorized these use cases, and a lot of them you will see are coming from the perspective of trying to figure out how things are moving through a supply chain or through a particularly well-defined, step-by-step, logistics network, if you will, and to keep a track of that. I think that is but natural, because if you look at blockchain, it is essentially a framework that gives you ability to trust on untrusted parties, right? So the trust is in the network, the trust is in the technology, and therefore it brings together all these different parties. So if you look at the use cases that I'll talk about, you will see that physical goods or services are actually moving from one organization to another, and then they put their faith, their trust into the underlying blockchain network. So let's look at some of the details of these use cases. As I mentioned, we've sort of categorized them, but when I start talking about the use cases, I'm not really going to go into category. The use case will define it itself. So the first one that I want to start with is Standard Chartered, based in Singapore. And what they have essentially done is created a tokenization, asset tokenization solution that is deployed on blockchain. And what they do is they create this platform that essentially makes it possible to take different assets that people invest in, and similar to what Kostov was talking about earlier. But these tokens are then traded on exchanges that are probably Corda based or Quorum based. So there is a trading gateway. But what the StanChart is able to do for its customers is provide them visibility into what their investments are, how they are being traded, and what exactly is the trade detail that needs to be sent back to them. So what you're seeing over here is a solution that we built along with them to enable a 24/7 ability for their end customers to do trading using the assets, right? And not only did we create the 24/7 platform, but we also enable real-time settlement on that particular platform. So that's StanChart. The second one that I want to talk about is a company called CargoSmart. And what I'll do here is I'll run this particular video.
CoTrust is quite well known in the industry. People recognize that we are one of the market leader in technology application for shipment management.
We have customers across US, Europe, Asia, thousands of them. Shippers all over the world are really looking at where their cargoes are, especially in the situation where you have disruptions. Many parties are managing their data in a silo. The informations are all sitting in different places. CargoSmart provide the capabilities for the customers to really track and trace their cargoes.
Shipping industry has been around for a long, long time. Shipment is quite complicated because that they are involving many parties and many different information assembled together.
In a typical shipments, there are probably 15 documents. If the documentations of the shipment is not managed properly, you will have delays in shipments. So there's a lot of the supply chain problems that you will see.
Because there's so many different forms of document used to exchange the artifacts, it has been difficult in terms of relying the timing and context behind the document and people involved.
To solve our problem, we need to have trust and transparencies. All blockchains technologies actually provide that space platform for us. We see 65% savings in time of handling paper documentations in shipments.
Blockchain have many good properties, and we pick on the trust element, so which is helping the global supply chain and people involved in different time zones and from different countries.
The Oracle blockchain cloud technologies helps us provide in real time a single source of trusted truth about their shipments.
The way that we leverage Oracle technology, we are not doing use case by use case experiment. We are building up an infrastructure, which is a network platform to support multiple carrier, terminals, customer, forwarder, all work together.
This is a very different way of working in this industry. The Oracle Cloud is helping us to transform the shipping industries. Blockchain is powering the trust in the shipping industries, and Oracle Cloud is helping us to achieve that.
So I hope the sound on that particular video was audible to you. It's available on YouTube, and I'll provide a link in case you want to take a look at that. But basically what CargoSmart is doing here is making possible for the shipment industry to handle the very dreaded word in their industry called documentation. So anytime ships are moving from port to port, and either picking up cargo or letting the cargo into the port, they have to have this particular documentation. And as was mentioned in the video, the documentation is different for different ports, etc. What blockchain enables CargoSmart to do is manage and track that in a much clearer fashion, so that all the participants in that particular network are able to have the visibility of what document exchanges need to happen, what have already been provided, and what needs to be provided further. What they have done is created actually something called the Global Shipping Business Network. It's a consortium of ports and shipping companies that actually brings together the ability to manage this particular blockchain network and actually network of networks. What they have done is they have gone to the next level in the sense of not just running the blockchain by themselves, but getting other members join their particular network and create a consortium. And I feel that is very, very crucial for success of any blockchain project. Unless and until you have members create a consortium that works together using blockchain as the underlying technology platform, it's going to be difficult for such a project to be successful. So here is what they did. As you can see, on November 6, 2018, they brought in multiple ports and shipping companies together to announce this particular consortium, starting their work. The second one, or the third one rather, I want to talk about is again the customer talking. So let's hear. So what you saw just now is a particular solution that Circular, that is a partner of ours, has built for Volvo. And what Volvo wants to do is, of course, do sustainable cobalt sourcing for their batteries. And the biggest challenge for them is not just from the perspective of where the cobalt is being sourced from and how it has moved across when it reaches their factories. It's also that they want to do carbon tracking for that. they want to do entire provenance. What that means is you should be able to visualize how exactly the material moved from source to destination, which shipment, which shipping organization, which ports, where all did it go. So from that particular perspective, this solution that we've built brings in another interesting factor that I'm seeing as far as logistics patterns are concerned. And that is use of IoT in conjunction with blockchain. What you are seeing here is an outline of the solution, which basically talks about creating a digital twin, which is a replica of the actual material that's being shipped, right? That has been mined and is being sourced. So the digital twin actually moves through the supply chain network that you've talked about. And this digital twin gets the update of how the material is moving by getting data from the IoT sensors that has been captured and fed into this particular network. And what they are doing right now is they are looking at onboarding more auto OEM companies into this particular network. Here is another one that's interesting. And this was one of our first customers to go live. They came to Open World Platform and talked about their solution. This is a solution from a company called Certified Origins, which they implemented for an olive oil company in Italy. The brand name is called Bellucci. And what Certified Origins did is created the entire product provenance right from the place where the olives are picked in the farms. And these farms are actually managed not by Bellucci, but by small farmers who provide or who supply olives to Bellucci. So from the time that it is picked up to it actually going to the factory and getting cold pressed or other types of manufacturing processes, and then go to the retail stores from where customers are buying. So customers actually have the ability to use a smartphone application to track or look at a barcode and then see the entire supply chain mapped out for them as to exactly where the olives came from and where they have gone through and where they are ending up. Entirely paperless logistics, that's the other additional benefit. And from the perspective of phase 2, they're actually increasing the scope of this entire deployment. Certified Origin has also brought in these additional factors into their solution. They're providing secure, access to the data, which means that, because it's running on top of blockchain, they're able to say that this is non-tampered and, reliable data. Very similar to what Certified Origins did for Bellucci, a company called Everledger has done for itself. And this is from the perspective of diamond tracing. So again, diamond industry has been facing this big dilemma of ethical sourcing of diamonds. And it is very, very important for their customers to actually say which particular or which mine and how it was mined, those particular diamonds, where did they come from? And if it is moving from one buyer to another buyer, then there's also this particular factor of transfer of ownership. So this particular solution that Everledger's built of tracing diamonds from mines to retail, it tracks 40 different pieces of data related to the diamond piece, right? So that metadata is what they capture, and as the diamond moves through the network, they sort of keep track of those factors. So when you buy a diamond from Everledger, you can again find out exactly where it was mined, who all did it, who purchased it earlier than you, if you bought it from another person. Now, continuing with the fact that our partners have been doing a lot of or building a lot of solutions, here is Infosys. And Infosys has built this particular solution that is again sustainable palm oil. And the solution that they've built is essentially enables registration of participants, so who are the palm oil manufacturers or people who actually get palms to the factories, and again tracking of that provenance. They also provide an incentive program. So there is a digital wallet that that the registered participants get, which then is automatically accrued in terms of transfer, whatever they brought to the mill, and for that what particular value they get. And the whole solution enables them to observe and report on not only what's happening from the perspective of the actual commerce that's there, but also from the perspective of sustainable part. So you see across these use cases, whether it's Volvo, whether it's Everledger, whether it's this the palm oil sustainable project, there is a sense of social responsibility that is being carried, and no better technology than blockchain to sort of back that particular commitment from the customers. Now here is something that we did in India with Niti Aayog, under the aegis of Niti Aayog. And what we did is we did this particular drug supply chain tracking from in the sense of right from where the drug has been manufactured to it going to their warehouse, from there going to their suppliers, from there going to the distributors, and then to retail shops. So basically, with this particular, and we had participation from companies like Strides Pharma and Apollo Pharmacy to help with this particular prototype. Essentially, what we did again is we used IoT and blockchain as well as our integration framework to capture data right from the time that a supply or a batch of drugs leaves from a particular factory, goes to different points in the supply chain. What this particular prototype also did is it tracked the temperature that the medicines were kept in. It captured the distance, the average time taken to cover distance between point A and point B, and therefore it is able to recognize the exceptions when they're happening. So if the medicine is supposed to be maintained in a particular temperature, and the temperature is not is not being maintained, then that particular exception is captured. So when you are buying a particular batch or a particular medicine from this particular batch, you can again use an application on your smartphone to capture such exceptions and say you are not interested in this particular strip from that particular batch, but another strip from another batch. So this prototype we did with under the aegis of Niti Aayog, and there is a project paper or a paper that's been already published in terms of how blockchain is able to provide this data that is irrefutable and that is not tampered and can provide the actual value to the end customer in this particular case of that particular medicine. So there are a couple of sorry, yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Ravi. Since we are running low on time, probably
okay.
We request you to take a Q&A on the chat offline.
Okay, okay. I'll definitely do that. I just wanted to share these resources. Of course, I'll provide them offline to you, and you can share that with others. So then, thank you a lot. Thanks for listening. And I hope this has been useful from the perspective of understanding how Oracle blockchain platform is being used by different customers. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ravi. That was an excellent session. Up next, we have this presentation from Chainyard. And for that, we have Vice President of Chainyard, Gigo Joseph, joining us today. And Gigo has over 22 years of experience as an executive and has experience in US, India, and Middle East. And he also holds speakers and leadership roles in various industry firms such as CI and NASCOM. We welcome you, Gigo Joseph. Over to you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Kamlesh. I hope you can hear me well.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. I'm Gigo Joseph. I work as the Vice President of Blockchain Services for Chainyard. I am here to talk about Rapid Supplier Connect on top of Trust Your Supplier. So Rapid Supplier Connect is a an application or one of the service we started on top of Trust Your Supplier blockchain network 2 months back as a response to COVID-19 PPP, the personal protective equipment issue, which industry found it was very short and not available, good quality, not available. So in order for me to explain that solution, we need to go back and explain what Trust Your Supplier is. And so some of my initial slides talk about what Trust Your Supplier, then I'll come to Rapid Supplier Connect. So before that, just one slide about Chainyard. Chainyard is a company based out of North Carolina in the US. We have been in the blockchain industry for the last 5 years. We work with Hyperledger a lot. We are key contributor to IBM in the Hyperledger platform, primarily in the testing aspect of Hyperledger Fabric. Over the years, we've done more than 24 project blockchain solution for our clients, and at least 4 of them are in production now. So with that expertise, at some point we thought, why don't we create one solution by ourselves? So Trust Your Supplier was our CEO's vision to have creating one solution by Chainyard ourselves. So we had multiple ideas, like many of the startup, like Kaustik was saying, like we had multiple ideas in blocks that could be done in blockchain. So we finalized on the supplier management challenges, the managing supplier onboarding and supplier maintaining supplier lifecycle. So if you are into procurement stage, right? If I don't know how many of you are here worked on procurement before, you know that there are a lot of challenges in onboarding suppliers. The first challenge is the qualification. It is very difficult for you to find a good supplier. I think digital value was mentioned by Kaustik before. He's saying, how do you know one of your vendor you're onboarding is having good quality, right? So we don't know the history, all those of a supplier. So this qualifying itself will take time. Let's say you qualified a supplier, then you go for validation. The way primarily validation happens today is you as a buyer, you ask supplier like 100 questions or 50 questions, starting from all your financial documents, all your certifications, all your insurances, copy of all your board members, board members' relationship to certain people, you keep on going all these questions. And once the company submits all these answers to these questions, there's no way to validate that for a buyer. So what buyers does is they send it out to major validators like Dun & Bradstreet, Thomson Reuters, or maybe to a chartered accountant, or go to, if you have in India, if they submitted a trade license, you go to the MCA or one of the government websites to verify that, and verify all the board member, all information. So once this takes 30 days to 3 months, this verification or validation process. Once they are validated and verified, the people are onboarded. Once they are onboarded, you use internally your own system, like SAP Ariba has a system, and a few other vendors provide. You add all your vendor specific data into this particular web page or this particular internal ERP. And then again, the problem doesn't stop there, because after 6 months, maybe his life insurance expired, maybe his company board member resigned, or maybe his product quality ISO certification expired. You need to resubmit all these aspects back to the buyer again. And for a buyer, it may be one time with a supplier, but for a supplier, if he's connected to 25 buyers, this process is it's a very painful process for a supplier. So if you look at this is a slow and inefficient, it's a regulatory requirements are changing every day. Government in each country make different documents required for doing different businesses, or different certifications or different licenses required. So this keeps updating, and there's a technology gap today to address that. This. So what I explained is captured here in a pretty simple diagram for you to explain that process. So if you are a supplier, you submit same data or mostly same data to buyer one. But the point is, let's say when you're submitting to buyer one, buyer two, and buyer three at different time zone or different time in your time, what happens is the data may change. As an example, here you submit a license copy, and when you submitted to buyer three, like 3 months back or a year back, your license you had different, right? You never went and resubmitted it. So the problem exists here. Multiple versions of the copy exist. There's no single source of truth. And the supplier is every day chasing buyers to resubmit the data. Buyers database is completely invalid in a lot of times, and they find it out only when an incident occurs. As an example, let's say buyer has an insurance policy with a supplier, and there's an accident happened, then buyer when goes and check, seems that insurance policy was expired. All right. So we thought creating a trusted source of digital identity, a supplier information, is a good use case. It accelerates supplier onboarding and accelerates lifecycle management. And it definitely reduces cost, shorten life cycle, it can bring it down, and this create the trust. But the key challenge, there's a key challenge was there, right? Like any startup you face, like Kaushik was saying, we don't have the muscle power to go and tell large companies outside. Chainyard is a technology company. Though we have been there from 1999 onwards, we were never in the procurement domain, and we were never in the like anything outside IT services. So we needed somebody very strong to go with us. So we went to IBM procurement. We met the CIO of Bob Murphy, CIO of IBM, and told him about this solution. And they liked it. So IBM and Chainyard joined in partnership. IBM took care of the entire the procurement expertise. They brought in the expertise of procurement, how the solution should be, the domain. They brought in other people. I'll show you a later slide how the ecosystem looks today. And Chainyard took care of the whole technology. I mean, having done many solutions for client, including IBM, we have done many solutions. So for us, managing technology and the investment primarily came from Chainyard. So we segregated our responsibilities and worked as one independent entity. So we created Trust Your Supplier, the product line. So in order to explain how this works, it's very simple. I mean, after hearing, everybody here is a blockchain expert. So after hearing the problem, you probably identified solution already. It's a very simple solution. So what supplier does is, first time when a supplier connects to a buyer, everything remains same as today. And supplier, let's say buyer one invites supplier one, and supplier goes and submits all his documents as requested by buyer one into the blockchain network. And verifiers come like Dun and Bradstreet or Thomson Reuters or those kind of verifiers come and verifies data on blockchain. And this take the same time, like that 3 months or 45 days, 1 month or whatever it used to take before. Now the game changer happens is like when buyer two comes and try to onboard supplier. At that point, the supplier has all his data validated and verified by a verifier, exists in a blockchain network, which is an immutable single source of truth. So all the supplier has to do is, for all this data which are as relevant to the buyer one, same data can be shared to buyer two. So from 30 days to 3 months, you can bring it down to 1 or 2 days or even 5 days, depends on how many data is same between buyer one and buyer two. That's the first part. Second part is, think about this. Like, say one supplier is connected to 25 buyers. Today, let's say supplier is a license expired. In today's scenario, he has to renew the license, take that copy of the license, give it to all 25 companies, and all 25 companies send it to 25 verifiers. Maybe they go to same verifiers, but they themselves don't know they are going to same verifiers. Verifies and enters back into the ERP system. In this case of this blockchain, the supplier, only thing he does is he uploads the new license into blockchain, and verifier comes and requests verifier to verify, and verifier verifies it. All the buyers, smart contract will execute and update all the buyers, saying that the identity or the license has been renewed and verified. So what all the suppliers and buyers found that the major benefits come from 90% of the real-time updates. Today, the things which they were doing manually today, it can happen automatically. 70 to 90% reduction in cycle time, because the commonality of the data between buyer and supplier, buyer to buyer, reduces the onboard time drastically. And 50% of reduction in cost to the supplier is what we found. So this is specific to buyer, the outcome. But all these three people, these real-time updates, reduce cycle time and reduce the costs are which we found it same. So the reason is different, right? In the case of a supplier, the reason he gets elimination, because he is eliminating repetition. He is not going to everybody and updating the same information, right? So in order for a blockchain to be successful, and this is the second point, which I have to make here today for all the startups. The first point was, if you wanted to be successful, you needed somebody very strong in that domain to take you around, because if you are a technology company, right? And second point is, whatever blockchain network you create, it has to provide immediate value to everybody joining. If you cannot provide value to everybody joining, everybody to join the network, all stakeholders, you will not be able to scale the network. Let's take an example. If you look at, let's say one of the verifier comes and let's take a look at the verifier's current scenario, right? Today, the verifier gets a verification of the same supplier from multiple buyers, right? I mean, so let's say I'm a chartered accountant or an accounting firm. I just sit there. Supplier goes to buyer one, gives the financial data. Buyer one send it to me verification. Supplier goes to buyer two, send it the financial data. Buyer two send it to me for verification. When I get buyer two's from buyer two same data of supplier one, I know that I verified only a week back. I just maybe seal it and return it back, right? But you need to realize that once it comes in the blockchain, the verification probably happens only once. In that case, does that mean that the verifier is not getting benefit, or verifier is not losing his revenue? Then the verifier will not join the blockchain network. So you need to think through the business process in such a way that the verification is the IP of the verifier. That when that IP gets reused by another buyer or another supplier scenario, he gets paid. So we created a business network where everybody, the buyers get a benefit because they have faster access to validated information. They can onboard somebody very quickly. They know the history of the supplier. They know, how trustworthy they are. They can ask whoever all you are giving this supplying. And at the most important aspect is the managing life cycle of that supplier is much easier. It is 90% automated. Suppliers, I can start selling. I don't need to wait for 3 months. I can start selling the next day onwards. I get real-time update. I don't need to go and repeatedly give my data to every buyers. Then we also brought in concept of third-party developers on top of this network. All these verifiers, so we brought in a very new concept. It's called, let's say you want to be a verifier, or you want to be a service provider on top of this network. We provide an API, or we provide a small application which you can download. That application provides APIs to all the data or interfaces which we provide. Again, you need to go through licenses mode for that. Then you use that API. You can connect to the data. You can provide a service. Let's say you want to provide a service called credit rating of the suppliers based out of all the data available in blockchain network. So you can create that service. You can come and install, and you can sell it to buyers. Buyers can buy that license from you and create the credit rating services for them. So they make money out of it. That audit compliance and verifies and certificate issuers. Every time someone verifies or verified data get reused, they get paid. And Chainyard is the owner and operator of the network. So the revenue aspect comes to the owner and operator. And we also created we found that from our experience, that's the third learning we had. We found that just Chainyard IBM going alone in the market again would be difficult to get in buyers. So we created a governance board. And being in the governance board, you get additional benefits. You get you get a percentage of revenue. So the first thing, we need to tell you this before I show the governance board. The first thing we did is we went and studied the supplier data hierarchy. So we found that buyers to buyer, 50% of the data remains same. So if you have 2 buyers in the network, one supplier going to 2 buyers in the network, minimum guaranteed 50% of the questions will remain same. So that way, 50% of the time can be cut short immediately of onboarding a supplier. If you go to they both are the buyers, both are the same industry, then another 20 to 25% data remains same. And they are the geographic, another 10 to 15% remains the same. So what we found is buyer to buyer differences could be as less than 5%. That's one of the major reasons. This data gave us the confidence to go ahead and start with the Trust Your Supplier network. So let me skip this. Let me go to where it is today. Let me spend a few minutes here. As you see that the number of people adopted or signed up for Trust Your Supplier is like in a pretty big. We have all the major brand names now, and we finally had to close governance board now. I mean, American Express, Amex was the last one we got in with that because many companies wanted to be on the governance board. So we had companies starting from, what we did is we segmented an area domain, because we thought, you saw the questionnaire before, right? You saw this one before, right? Each industry, there is a different set of questions could come in, like, the questionnaires or the buyer onboarding process would be different. So we wanted in the governance board, one company minimum in each industry, so that they help us to define how to onboard suppliers in that particular industry, right? So being the governance board has a lot of roles and responsibility. So one of the best thing, that's a fourth important aspect I want to tell you any startups out here, is that creating a good governance board or creating your ability to manage and create a consortium will define a success and failure of a blockchain solution, especially for enterprises. Because if you have a large governance board like this, it's much easier for us to sell, because they look at the governance board, they say, okay, I want to sign up. I don't want to even see your presentation. How can I sign up? That's the first thing they come in. Second, all the people, like everybody in the governance board, we met at Choice actually. The first governance board was last November in Miami, Florida. I mean, like huge participation from every company. And we defined the process for each sector onboarding, and defined the roles and responsibility for everyone. We defined how do they benefit out of it. There are 2 aspects when you discuss governance board or consortium governance policies. One is a business consideration and second is a technical consideration. Business consideration is who pays who, what is incentive model, why should somebody join, how do you add a member, how do you remove a member, what is somebody plays wrong. On the technology considerations, thousands of questions like who operates the network, how do you operate network, who will upgrade, how do you ensure saying that when you upgrade smart contract are in place, who will audit the network, how do you ensure saying that multiple these multiple nodes running in multiple like in AWS or in Azure or in a private cloud, how do you ensure that they interoperate? There are hundreds of questions on the technical consideration coming, right? So believe me, if you are thinking of making all this thing into a legal agreement with in a governance board environment like this, it's not going to be easy. So to me, the major reasons enterprise blockchains couldn't take off is in some of the areas is people's inability to, or lack of expertise to create a governance board and create rules and regulations around it. So outside the governance board here, what you see, we have validators, we have major validators. Dun & Bradstreet has joined as one of the very first validators joined the network. We also have the business network. SAP Ariba has joined as a business network, providing all the services on top of the data which gets collected from the Trust Your Supplier. I was just doing a quick time check. And we also have founding buyers, the buyers who did not make it to governance board, but they joined at the early stages. We consider them a founding buyers. So you might ask, what is the business model here? I'll come to that after the next slide. So the business network, the data providers on the right side are the people who actually validate the data, verify data, provide the data, right? So as an example, EcoVadis validate the environmental rating. I think Rapid Rating provides the risk rating. Dun & Bradstreet do the company verifications, those slides. The companies here on the left, they actually take this data or do analytics or do AI or do all other services which companies, existing ERP systems companies do. They were providing through their own database today, but they will integrate with this Trust Your Supplier and take data from there and provide more services on top of Trust Your Supplier. And what's the business model? The business model today is the buyers join the network for free. As of today, okay, this could change after a year when the network probably grows much bigger. Things may change. But as of today, the buyers join the network for free, and suppliers pay a fee only when suppliers get sign up with more than one buyer. When supplier is connected only by one buyer, supplier do not get any benefit because he is going through the same process. The supplier digital identity gets generated when he connected to first buyer. And when they go for the second buyer, supplier gets the benefits of, network benefit. Then supplier starts paying an annual fee. So that's how we structured the business model. So what is Rapid Supplier Connect, right? So Rapid Supplier Connect is our first response to COVID-19. So what we recognized was there is a major issue of PPE. All the PPE emergency equipments are required in the market. There's a need and have, right? There's a lot of people needed it immediately, and a lot of people have it, and we don't know who has it, and we don't know how good that supplier are. So what we created a rapid response supplier connect, where in a traditional Trust Your Supplier, a buyer has to invite a supplier to join the network and has to go through the verification process. In this one, we slightly changed it. Supplier can directly come and join, and buyers also they can directly come and join, and supplier publish their availability of the PPE equipments, and then they connect outside whatever, once they see the availability, the buyer can outside the Trust Your Supplier network can go and quickly do the transactions. And completely surprised us, we had around 175 suppliers and some 97 buyers joined the network, and within a 2-week span of time. And this is created only for the COVID-19, and we just took only around 3 weeks for us, Chainyard and IBM, to put together the solution on top of Trust Your Supplier. The only reason I want to show this is to show you, once you have a large set of suppliers and buyers in the network, look at how quickly you can create a new service on top of it, right? So you will become like a Facebook, or you'll become like an Amazon or some of those things where you have all the suppliers and buyers in the network, and you can dynamically create solutions on top of that. So this is just, I mean, this is a repeat of one of the slides which he had, right? The business value for all participants. And if you wanted to read, understand more, and there's a buyer demo. I mean, people, if you wanted to see technology, how it has been put together, and how the screens are, how they connect, how the invite happens, all those things, you can just go to YouTube, just search for Trust Your Supplier. I think this is a buyer demo, buyer persona demo, and this is a supplier persona demo, and you also have so many others demos there. I think I was just rushing through because we don't have much time. So if you have much questions, either, I mean, I don't know, Kaushik, we have time for questions. Otherwise, you can send me an email. It's gigo.joseph@chainyard.com.
Yeah, thanks, you. So I think you can take two questions there in the Q&A section.
Yeah. So the first question: how do you ensure that PII data is not put into the blockchain? So of course, that's the first thing you have to do. Is like you have to have off-chain and on-chain DB. So in the on-chain, only the public information, like suppliers' public information, wanted to be there in the network. If a supplier wanted other buyers to see and invite them, then that public information goes there. All other data goes in off-chain, and only when a buyer invites you, you give the permission for a buyer to see that off-chain data. The second question: how can we trust the verifier in the blockchain when this person runs through all the documents? How can we trust the verifier in the blockchain when this person runs through all the documents? I'm not understanding that question.
So I think he want to say, like, because verifier now have access to all the documents. So how someone buyer supplier can trust to the verifier?
No, the verifier do not have all the document. Verifier has a document which is sent him for verification. Let's say you wanted financial documents to be verified by Dun & Bradstreet. The buyer will send only that verification to the verifier, and verifier, with the permission of supplier, verifies their data and put that verification back into the blockchain. Just because of he sent a verification back into the blockchain does not mean that other buyers can see that this particular supplier's data has been verified by verifier. That particular buyer needs to have a license of this verifier installed in the Trust Your Supplier network, and on top of that, he should be invited by the supplier. Sorry, the buyer should have invited supplier, and supplier should have accepted it.
Thank you, Jizo. I guess we'll take more questions on offline through Q&A portal and chat. Thank you for your great presentation.
Thank you, appreciate that. And thanks again for giving me a chance to present here. And feel free to reach to us if you have any questions in Trust Your Supplier, or if you have a question in general about creating network, with all our expertise in creating consortium, and you saw the large consortium we have, we should be able to help you out. Appreciate that. Appreciate.
Thank you, Jizo.
Bye.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye bye. Up next, we have a session from HCL, modernizing multinational insurance through HCL's CoTrust BuildingBlock platform. And for the presentation, we have Vikram Sharma, who is a senior technical architect for blockchain in HCL Technologies. And we have Shivendra Yadav joining us, who is a global product leader for blockchain at HCL Technologies. Over to you guys.
Okay, hi guys, good morning. My name is Shivendra. I'm just trying to show the presentation here. Let me know when it is visible.
Yeah, it's visible.
All right. Okay. So let's get started. Thank you to all the panelists as well who have shared their views on blockchain, Oracle, Chainyard, Pyse, and these were tremendous presentations. Kind of an eye opener as to what is happening in this industry. And okay, so from an HCL perspective, we also have similar capabilities of blockchain. Like we can build the complete blockchain system. We have the enterprise services built on top of Hyperledger and many other blockchain platforms. But we are kind of centering our presentation today on the MNC insurance. MNC insurance is basically multinational insurance. As the name suggests, we all know what MNC means. So what happens is, so MNC insurance is generally when people are trying to, the MNC corporations are trying to secure their physical assets, their brick and mortar presence across the globe through an insurance provider. So that is what we call an MNC insurance. So our agenda is fairly simple for today. We'll talk about MNC insurance. What exactly is it? Because we are not assuming that people are aware of this concept. Then how MNC insurance and blockchain can coexist together, and what are the business and technical benefits. Then we'll look at our building block solution, what exactly it is, and what is the concept behind it, what is the technical architecture, and our own IP, how it relates to building block. Then we will look at HCL capability, as in what IPs frameworks we have, what kind of presence we have on cloud, and how a person can accelerate with us, or take our solutions, or can take the product to the market. All right. So when it comes to MNC insurance, which is multinational insurance, so as I stated earlier, it relates to the property insurance coverage taken by a multinational business to secure their physical assets from any kind of theft or natural calamity, damage, or any act of God. Right? Am I audible, or is there a problem?
Yeah, you are audible.
Yes, you are audible. Guys, please go on mute if you're not speaking.
Okay, thank you. So that's what MNC insurance is. It generally gets categorized into three major segments. So one is called the local insurance, one is called global, and the third one is called Controlled Master Program, which is CMP. What exactly is local MNC insurance? What is MNC in local insurance? So, for example, let's say you are a global corporation, set up in, established in 10 odd countries, but all your regional locations within those countries have taken their own set of property and casualty insurance. So it is not tied to a global provider. Everyone is managing their own set of policies. Everyone is trying to handle it on their own. The insurance providers are different in different countries, and it's kind of ad hoc, if I say so. So what are the challenges? It is obviously fragmented. It obviously will have prohibitive costs because you are not getting economies of scale when you are purchasing, your property and casualty insurances in bits and pieces. Obviously, you will not have economies of scale or a scale of a global policy. Then obviously you have different renewal dates, different terms and conditions. So it is pretty local in that sense. So, but again, it falls under the purview of MNC insurance. Now, there is a second category called global insurance, which is basically a policy issued by a single provider. So, for example, AIG can secure HCL's 49, HCL's around 200, 300 offices present in 49 countries. Then we call it as a global insurance or a global provider who has secured all the premises of that organization in those countries. Right. So what are the benefits? So benefit is, obviously that you will have economies of scale, you can get better pricing and all those things. But obviously there are certain challenges as well. The challenges are that, the claim handling first happens at the local site, then happens at a country level, the distribution I'm talking about. The claim distribution happens at a country level, at a global level. So there is a segregation in the claim handling part as well. There is segregation in the premium distribution as well between local sites, your country site, your country office, and then your global office. So there are a lot of administrative overheads which happens in a global scenario. Then obviously there are certain regulatory challenges as well. In particular countries, you have to behave in a certain way. You have to be present in those countries. You cannot, your policies cannot be bound in a global sort of a way. So there are many challenges associated in a global policy. Then comes your CMP, which is Controlled Master Program, which means what can happen in a controlled master program is, for example, there is an organization who comes to a provider, let's say general insurance, if general is into property and casualty insurance. So then the person comes to general and says, okay, general, here's the scenario. I have policies taken from 5 or other insurance providers in my 10 or 15 locations, and I want to merge everything with your umbrella, and what all new offices will come, you please secure those offices and provide me the property and casualty insurance there. So now this is called controlled master program, in which general is trying to control all the policy providers, for example AIG, or for example anyone, Aegon, or anyone who is handling those locations. Plus they'll be providing new insurance policies to all those locations where they have newly commissioned their services. So this is a controlled master program, and generally in an organization which is well established, let's say around 20-25 years in the industry, these kind of circumstances happen that generally to avoid the operational overheads, you tend to give the contract to a single organization so that your operational burdens are reduced. So when it comes to BuildingBlock, our solution is between global and CMP, and we actually started with a global scenario where a single provider is managing all the locations of a customer on blockchain. But slowly our intent is to move towards a CMP solution, where we can handle multiple providers and multiple locations, sort of a heterogeneous sort of an environment. So this is what we are trying to do. Now moving on. So when it comes to insurance, obviously there are a lot of legal and legal bindings involved, as from a geography perspective itself. So what can happen? What are the risks and considerations? So obviously, first of all, when you go for an MNC insurance, there are considerations like what kind of physical presence you have, right? Whether it's a dedicated site, it's a rental site, it's a let's say it's an office within a building which is being handled by someone else, right? And then what lines of insurance will be suitable? What kind of insurance will be suitable to you according to the terms? What are the contractual counterparties? So as I stated, your office might be situated in another's premise, right? You have taken an office in a big complex of, let's say, which has 15 stories. You have taken 1 story. So what, so the contractual party will be your building provider as well, because he's also, affecting the services of your location. So you are not, you are not independent actually in those circumstances, right? Then what kind of coverage will be there? So when it comes to coverage, every country, and even in that country, every location has their own coverage terms and conditions. So for example, if we talk about Delhi NCR, let's talk about Indian example. Delhi NCR falls under seismic zone 4, whereas Bangalore falls under, let's say, seismic zone 2. So the considerations will be different for different locations. So this is just one part. There might be certain laws and regulations which are different for Delhi, different for Bangalore, different for San Francisco, different for Paris, right? So there are local terms and conditions which you need to adhere to. So it's a very, cumbersome job to formulate a policy, and comprising all those terms and conditions. Then the biggest consideration in MNC insurance is generally around turnaround time. So as soon as a customer states his intent to buy a policy from an insurance provider, that from that point onwards till the policy completion, if let's say there are 20 odd countries and around 100 odd offices in different countries, that policy formulation might take a year or so to develop, because there are a lot of local annexures which will go into the master policy, and these annexures have to be incorporated and whatnot. So for that complete 1 year, you're not going to get any business from an insurance provider perspective. You're not going to get any business. You are just putting operational burdens in creating and formulating such a system, right? Then there are underwriting processes. Obviously, you need to make sure that you incorporate all the things, you decide the premiums accordingly, and there are many things, right? Then there is premium distribution. So as soon as premium starts flowing into your organization as an insurance provider, you have to distribute the premium accordingly, because it's not, the premium doesn't get earned by the local site, it gets earned by the country level offices as well. It gets billed to the global office as well. So there is premium distribution as well. Then if a claim comes, obviously you need to have the claim distribution in the similar lines as well, because global will also handle certain claims, local will handle certain claims, and what percentage will it be? It again depends on policy to policy, right? And then there are policy related audits as to who formulated the policy, what was the background, what kind of laws and regulations we have incorporated. So for example, the policy got formulated 20 years back. Now the laws have changed, whether it got incorporated or not in the policy annexures or in the master document. So if an auditor comes and audits you, he will audit according to the trail, right? According to the history of the policy. So there are a lot of consideration in insurance, because insurance as a business itself is very, very administrative in nature, because it's not highly digitized, although we saw on various portals that we can buy the policy quickly, but it is just for the end customer. When it comes to the corporate policies, in terms of the corporate insurance, like property and casualty, like MNC insurance, it is very complex, and it involves plethora of solutions. There are very pointed solutions who do such kind of a job, and they're very expensive as well, right? So these are certain risks and considerations. Then what we thought of is that we got certain customer requirements, and we thought of thinking around the lines as to can MNC insurance be coupled with blockchain, and what kind of technical benefits and business benefits we can have, right? What we are not saying here in this presentation is that blockchain is going to completely transform this whole system and can change the way it works. But what we are saying is it can bring tremendous efficiencies. The way it is set up, the MNC insurance currently is very traditional. If it goes the blockchain way or it goes the digitized way, obviously they will have a lot of benefits. So what will happen is, as soon as a master policy gets created, their annexures and everything can be visible real time on blockchain. As soon as there is a party who wants to create an annexure, and so annexure creation takes a lot of to and fro, from your local sites to your country sites to your global sites, right? So there is a to and fro happening between these three. So that can happen on real time on blockchain. So obviously there is no dependence on any other system. So it is real time. So that can really solve this problem, which will obviously lead you to faster policy formation. So as I mentioned earlier, it can take a year or year and a half. So let's say if you can build the policy in, let's say 6 or 7 months time, the rest 6 or 7 months is of your time, which you saved, is where you can actually earn the premium on the policy. And premium, I'm not talking about in some 5 figures. It is like six figures out of a premium, right? So and in US dollars, of course. So this is what we can do. Then obviously when it comes to audits, when it comes to claim handling, when it comes to policy premium distribution, smart contracts can come in very handy, because you can decide the logic, you can build the logic itself, and you can send the premium, get the premium distributed accordingly. So obviously audits and claims become very very seamless, because every trail is there, every change is there, and auditor can easily see what all changes you have done in the whole life cycle of a policy. So this is where the synergy is between MNC insurance and blockchain. Now, so this is a typical initiation process in an MNC insurance. So let's say there is a company A headquartered in US, let's say maybe let's say California, or let's say any New York region, right? So it is headquartered in US, right, with offices in India and France, and then obviously some local offices in US itself. So if the policy starts getting formulated from the US headquarters of the company, so let's say there's a US office who calls up an insurance provider and discusses his own scenario, then US office becomes a producing country from an insurance provider perspective. So let's say company A's office in US will talk to insurance provider's office in US. So this insurance provider's office will become producing country because it will produce the master document, right? So the producing country will draft the policy, will create certain annexures, publish policy and annexures. These annexure policies will be received by the receiving country. Let's say insurance offices sitting in India and France, right? So these offices will receive the master policy created by the producing country, and they will further downstream will send those annexures for review to the regional sites, let's say Delhi, Mumbai, and Paris, right? So these annexures will be sent to them. These guys will create their own set of clauses, amendments, and will send them upstream to the receiving country and then subsequently to the producing country. So the cycle takes a lot of time because obviously these are legal clause. So legalities have to be provisioned accordingly. So this is how this thing flows. Now, if we talk about BuildingBlock, which is based on our CoTrust services, and we'll come to CoTrust later. Now, BuildingBlock, what it does is we are trying to solve this annexure creation problem and the policy and the claim related or the claim distribution related aspects. So what will happen is there is a blockchain ledger. Obviously, there are company A location 1, company A location 2. For example, company A location 1 can be Paris, company A location 2 can be Delhi, right? These two locations will talk to the provider location 1, let's say sitting in Delhi, or let's say provider location 2 sitting in Paris. I mean, according to their geographies, they will talk to their regional offices. Now, this provider location 1 obviously will, so let's say provider, which is the insurance provider location 1 sitting in Delhi, let's say AIG, for example. AIG's office will see, okay, customer has this office in this location. This location is in seismic zone 4, let's say, and these are the local laws and conditions. There are certain conditions, obviously, they will have pre-written. So they will flow this complete annexure to the global node, and then when the global nodes does the changes, it will flow again from the blockchain ledger, and this to and fro will happen on the blockchain ledger, and the complete trail is being captured in blockchain. All the policy documents, the actual documents will be stored off chain, which with the complete architecture Vikram will talk about. But this is where the blockchain comes into the play, that generally what happens is, is there someone who wants to ask anything? Okay. So provider, the global node generally, or the global producing country generally will approve the annexures, and once the annexure is approved, it will get created as a policy on blockchain, right? So this whole complete trail of the policy can be seen on blockchain, plus the annexures, which usually take a lot of time because these annexures flow in a traditional way through emails or different channels. Versioning control is never proper in these documents, because there are a lot of stakeholders. It is not just one person talking to one person in global. There are 20 people talking to 10 people in a local site. So there are 30 people talking to each other, right? So there are a lot of things which a blockchain ledger can solve on a real-time basis. Now, why we chose this building block solution on blockchain is, one, as Oracle was mentioning, as as Chainyard Spock was mentioning, blockchain inherently in enterprises was not successful because there was a governance problem. When there are external organizations coming into the play, who will decide what will happen on the network is something which is very, very, very difficult, and it is extremely crucial for any enterprise, right? So that is why it was not successful to an extent which we thought of. So for this solution perspective, BuildingBlock, it is completely internal in the sense that the global node or the producing country is from the same provider. The local nodes which are sitting at the regional offices from an insurance perspective, they are all from the same provider. So essentially we are talking about a network which is within the organization. And if it is within the organization, setting up governance policies is fairly easy because then you can control it, right? There's no external entity involved. As soon as we go into a CMP model, which we talked about, that BuildingBlock will go to CMP model, which is Controlled Master Program, then complexities will arrive because there are external parties also in CMP. That is why we said we are still at global level. We want to, the aspiration is to go to a CMP model, right? So it is a complete intra-company sort of a use case. Then it directly impacts the turnaround time. So what happens in a blockchain cases, generally people don't have business cases, right? So people say, okay, yes, blockchain is good. It can do real-time things and lot many things, right? But where am I saving the money? Where is the real dollars, right? In this case, there are real dollars because as if you, let's say, don't do blockchain, you might have 1.5 years time, right? You'll formulate the policy in a year or so. But if you still say 4 or 5 months in that complete cycle, believe me, you can easily save $1 million. $1 million in terms of premium, which you have not received from the customer, which you could have received if you have done the policy formulation faster. So there are real dollars as well. It is completely intra-company use case. And when we discuss this use case with our insurance customers, they feel pretty happy about it because it is something which they can relate to. And it is not theoretical or in conceptual in nature. Right. So being said that, we have built BuildingBlock on CoTrust, which is our blockchain application platform, and it provides its own suite services on top of your vanilla blockchain platforms like Hyperledger, R3 Corda, Ethereum, right? Using which you can build your own services. But I'll not steal the thunder. I'll give it to Vikram. Vikram will talk about CoTrust. So Vikram, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Shweta. That was, wonderful presentation. Yeah, and thanks for the thunder. So I hope I'm audible.
Yes.
Hello.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, so now let me take you through the CoTrust platform. To adopt and implement a blockchain technology, any enterprise will have to go through the entire learning curve of blockchain, and they will have to develop set of foundational services for it. This entire process of developing any POC or MVP will take roughly about 5 to 6 months at its minimum. So with that problem statement in mind, HCL built this platform to flatten the curve of time it takes to implement. So this platform, therefore, at the bottom layer has industry-leading blockchain engines such as Hyperledger Fabric, R3, and Ethereum. And the next layer maintains the relationship with the certificate authorities and the identities. Then highlighted in yellow color, you can also see the layer that has variety of services called as foundational services, as they are at the core of any blockchain solution you implement. You will need these services irrespective of the use case. We have some generic services, for example, onboarding service that you will need to onboard new nodes into the network. The new node may be managed by CoTrust, or it may just be a node that CoTrust will submit transactions to. Similarly, we have node management service, enrollment service. Then there are transactional services, for example, entity service. If you decide to represent an asset on blockchain, it would need a data structure to back it and be recorded as. Then we have entity collection service, which you would use if you have a collection of entities to serve. For example, if there is a shipment that contains hundreds of assets, then you would use entity collection kind of a service. Another example could be validation service. To hold your entity to a defined standard, right? You can define entities using entity or entity collection service, but they would need this validation service to impose rules on that data structure. So that is also covered over here. Similarly, there we have document management service, logging service to log, notification service to send notifications out, be it SMS or emails. Then next we have, next if you wanted to put restrictions on these services, you can enable security using the security services that are offered by the framework. For example, to identify before you execute, to limit access, or to maintain audit trail, right? So these security services will offer you those features. Other services, services would include a generic dashboard for you to do some transactions, connectors and integrators for IoT, analytics, and traceability. You could also use a regulatory compliance service. So this API was intended to help auditors or regulators be aware of situations that they might find interesting, which were recorded on blockchain. Now this API can be useful when combination of assets meet specified criteria, or a notification has to be sent out, or you can use this service to generate reports. So this is quite useful for regulatory compliance. The layer above foundational services are the vertical use cases. So this is the vertical use case layer highlighted in blue. This would provide you a quick reference to different vertical use cases. Now, as we used CoTrust to develop solutions, we continue to add them as vertical templates, which can act as an accelerator for your next POC. The layer above are the channels and the stakeholders. There are various channels, different type of stakeholders that there could be. And on the left, you see integration with ECM and ERP systems. But in reality, you can integrate with any of your backend systems as you would require. So this platform gives you all those features that you would need to build your next POC, right? Or your new MVP. Now moving on, next we will map this building block solution to our CoTrust platform. Shivendra, if you can take us to the next slide, please. So there at the bottom, you can see the choice of blockchain engine, that is Hyperledger Fabric. And in the layer above, you would see the services that were customized for this purpose, which are backed by the CoTrust services, be it onboarding service, the validation service, the entity or entity collection service. There were other services which actually holds all of these together. For example, administrative services, the configuration service, and the template service. So the list is there. So, but you don't have to worry about all those when you use the CoTrust platform. All of the services are at the backend, and you only have to worry about your business logic which you want to build for a blockchain. So if you are building a blockchain application, you only bother about creating your business logic, writing your business logic, and leave the blockchain part to CoTrust, and you will be golden. So the beauty, and finally the beauty of this CoTrust is that if tomorrow you want to move from your choice of blockchain engine, you can easily do that without having to throw your entire solution. Not just the learnings, but actually the parts of it can be easily moved. Moving on to the next slide. Here is the layered architecture representation of building block, where at the bottom you see the network layer, which is hosting multiple Dockerized nodes. This was set up with Hyperledger Fabric 1.4 and Raft as ordering mechanism and Node.js client to interact with the network. We have also enabled operation matrix using Prometheus. At the second layer, we have business logic or business services APIs implemented. So this was again using Node.js. And on top, we built a user interface using Angular. And for API interface, we used Swagger UI. In terms of monitoring the operations of the network, we integrated Prometheus with Grafana, which comes out of the box integration for wonderful visualizations that Grafana provides. And this solution is made complete with the use of CouchDB as off-chain DB, because you can't really store everything on chain. So whatever additional things that you wanted to do off-chain, that you can store using CouchDB. And for example, recording the transactions so that you have a ready reference. Not every time you would go to Ledger and start looking at the transactions. You could have the transaction hashes off chain so that you have a ready reference and you can check with the ledger. And finally, our cloud document collaboration solution for drafting those policies and annexures which Shivendra mentioned. That would be for the architecture. Now back to Shivendra.
Okay, so thank you, Vikram. So very quickly, guys, I know we have been pressed against the time. So this is basically our blockchain capability. We started around 2015, late 2015, 2016 beginning. We have around 80 plus people. We have around, around 40 plus certified professional as well. This is some old numbers. We have 10 plus customers in blockchain. Some are in very advanced stages in the MVP and testing the products, and majorly in the banking and financial space. Then from a platform coverage standpoint, as Vikram mentioned, we are platform agnostic. Although we are very strong on Hyperledger, we have been working on Hyperledger from version 0.6 onwards till Hyperledger version 2 now. We have presence in Amazon Web Services, and it's a very interesting thing. I'll come to that. What kind of presence we have on Amazon Web Services? We are working with Azure and IBM Cloud as well to build similar sort of services, but maybe certain advanced features. Then we have these consortiums like BITA and Enterprise Ethereum Alliance. And we got recognized by Everest as leaders in 2020 last year and the year before that by Avascent. So in the last 3 years, we've been rated as leaders. So not touting about our achievements going forward. So what we have is essentially the CoTrust blockchain platform, which Vikram talked about. We have a product called Ops Manager, which helps you manage the blockchain deployment. So once you deploy the complete environment, and mind you, we are not mined only with CoTrust. So when an organization comes to us for any kind of blockchain services, CoTrust is an optional thing. Obviously, if customer feels that, okay, I need something very quickly, we use CoTrust. But if customer says, okay, yeah, I want everything to be customized, and I don't want any kind of reusability aspects in it, we are fine with that as well, because we have a very strong team of devs and BAs and all those folks who actually do the on-ground implementation, including architect like Vikram. So Ops Manager is one of the tools which will help you operationalize blockchain, which means
there's a time limit. So how many slides remaining, or is done?
Just I'll take another 2 minutes if you allow. All right, thank you. So Ops Manager helps you manage the complete platform, like adding peers, adding participants, removing nodes, and all those things we can do using Ops Manager. Then we have a product called CoTrust Cloud Native. I'll come to that very quickly. So this is CoTrust version 2, which is available on AWS Marketplace. And what you can do is you can set up the complete Hyperledger fabric with a single command. It is that easy. You can create channels, install chain code, invoke and query chain codes using Ops Manager. It is built in Ops Manager, and it has Hyperledger Explorer to manage your blockchain environment. Now, this whole product comes free of cost, which means you only pay for the virtual machine. That's it. The VM which you choose to deploy it on. The rest, all the services are free of cost. You're free to try it, free to look at it. And we have been pretty successful. We have around 15 organizations or 15 people. We don't know yet who are actually using, because these are anonymous guys, but hoping that these are blockchain experts who are using this platform. But this starts with as low as $0.18, right, per hour. So yeah, so this brings to the end of our presentation. Thank you for your time. Thank you, the team, Hyperledger India Chapter, for allowing us this opportunity, and we really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Shivan. Thank you, Vikram. It was a good presentation. And so the next topic we have from the Debut Infotech. They are Mohali-based startup, and they have their product called Fabdep. So you can deploy any kind of blockchain to the multi-cloud environment using the Fabdep. And then we have Rubal. Rubal.
Yeah, thank you. I'm not able to share my screen. Could you please enable that access?
You should be able.
Okay, okay. Yes.
You should be able to Rubal now. Can you please try once?
Okay.
You should be able to Rubal now. Can you please try once?
No, I'm not able to share my screen. Arun, my colleague, is he able to share the screen and we can then proceed?
Arun
Or
Salaria,
maybe
could
we
you
can.
please try once?
If he,
Yes, let me try.
Kamlesh, make Rubal as co-host.
yeah. Robert, try now. Now you're co-host.
No, I guess we'll wait for Arun to, share the screen. Arun, can you come to the next slide, please? Yeah. So yeah, I guess I'm glad it's all sorted. So yeah, good morning everyone. My name is Rubal and I'm working as a marketing manager with DB Infotech. We are a software development company based out of Mohali, but we do have offices in US and Canada as well. I have been joined by Arun Salaria on my part, and he's our blockchain development lead and also the product which we are representing, Fabdep. He's architect of Fabdep as well. So I'll just like to take the opportunity, just a moment to thank you, the Hyperledger India team or the Hyperledger India chapter for providing us this platform to showcase the product. I would also like to thank all the attendees for taking the time out for the presentation. I hope everyone out there is safe and healthy and following the protocols laid down by the government. I hope this tough phase passes out soon. So coming to our product, Fabdep. Fabdep has derived its name from two words, fabric and deployer. So Fabdep allows you to set up and deploy a distributed multi-cloud blockchain network with ease and precision. So Yarun, can you please come to the next slide?
Yes, actually, I'm not able to start the presentation. I just got hang up something. Please give me a second.
I think it's already in presentation mode. Choose
Yeah,
the others. Yeah.
you can simply come to the
Yeah.
next slide. Yeah, okay. Never mind. We'll give it a try. So I would just like to give you a brief background of the product Fabdep, like how it came into existence. So we'd been involved in blockchain space for about 3 years now, and we had been developing POCs and prototypes for a wide range of clients in different domains, like from real estate, fintech, and even the entertainment business. And by doing that, we had developed a product which was Am I audible, guys?
Yeah, we
If
can hear you. And
we can hear you, Rubal. Presentation was
Okay.
going nice. Yeah.
Okay. So I was talking about like our experience, like how do we thought about this product. So deploying a Hyperledger network, locally or to the cloud was kind of a tedious and error-prone process, and manual deployment of the network was also time-consuming. And at the same time, you were dependent upon multiple resources, technical sources for setting up and deploying the network, which kind of proved to be expensive. So that led to the birth of Fabdep, because we also talked to our community, like the blockchain community, and also within our network we kind of wanted to validate whether this problem really existed, like in terms of deploying the Hyperledger Fabric network. So then a couple of years ago, like in 2018, we did the first version of Fabdep, and these were the key features of Fabdep 1.0. The very first time this product was presented at the Basel conference, the blockchain conference in Switzerland. And the key features of that product were like native blockchain network deployment on cloud or LAN was supported. Docker based network was for quick chain code testing was supported, and it also supported Kafka based consensus. Certificate authority could be generated through CryptoGen, and we had network health checks as well. And Hyperledger Fabric up till version 1.2 was supported through Fabdep 1.2. But again, when this product was presented, it got a great response. But at the same time, there was, feedback from the team, like this product had certain limitations. So Arun, if you can come to the next slide, I'll probably give a quick walkthrough. So yeah, previous slide, please. Yeah. So basically, the limitations of Fabdep 1.0 or the feedback which we received from users was that they required the Kubernetes cluster support for the production level network deployment. At the same time, they needed something which would give them more control over their network deployments. And obviously, like I told you, it only supported up till Hyperledger Fabric version 1.2, but in production, level environment, they wanted something which was kind of, supporting the latest versions of Fabric. And also they needed something more, a fault tolerant authoring service than Kafka, which was supported in 1.2. And this is what, then we took this feedback on board, and based upon that, we worked for around 6 to 8 months. Around 5 developers worked on it, and we came up with version 2.0, Fabdep 2.0. This one, Fabdep 2.0, is live right now and is accessible to public. You can download it from our official marketing page. And we'll talk about those features of Fabdep 2.0 in subsequent slides. Arun, if you can please, come to the next slide. So yeah, so the most important feature of Fabdep 2.0 is that it supports automated deployment through Kubernetes. Yeah, so you can deploy your network through Kubernetes version 1.11 or higher, and it is also designed for for the enterprises who are looking to deploy their blockchain components or store their data on network components on their own infrastructure. Arun, would you be able to play the video? Yeah. So guys, the technical demo of Fabdep would probably take around 35 to 45 minutes. So what we can do is probably give you a quick, walkthrough of the features. Arun is sharing his screen of the Fabdep tool, and he'll give you a walkthrough like what all features are supported through Fabdep 2.0.
Here is this. Hello, good morning, guys. Here is the screen that will be shown whenever you land up on our tool. So first thing in our tool is to create a Kubernetes cluster. What we are doing here is we are creating a native Kubernetes deployment over any cloud provider. We just need the SSH enabled VMs. So right now what we can do is we can add here the name, the master, the whatever the role type a worker has. So if you all, I think you all are aware about the Kubernetes cluster. There are two types of roles generally. The first one is the master, which who generally manages the cluster, and other are the workers, those who generally run our payloads. So from this screen, you can create our cluster, check the connections. So all the things that are the complexities will be handled by the Fabdep. You don't have to be a DevOps or a Kubernetes expert to create a cluster. This all things are handled by our Fabdep tool. All the process starting from the checking the connection, setting up the master, creating the creating a token for so that the workers can join, setting up a NFS server so that it can be used for as an private volumes and private volumes claims, things like that. So over to you, Ruben.
Yeah. So another very important feature of Fabdep 2.0 is that it provides enhanced authenticity through customized CA. So you can create your own CA from the Hyperledger Fabric, and Fabdep 2.0 auto-generates cryptographic certificates that are tied to organizations, network components, or your end client applications. And Arun, if you can, show it on the tool itself.
So here is the screen from where you can create a custom CA authority. It's not recommended. Lot of guys these days generate certificates to CryptoGen, which is not recommended by Hyperledger Fabric. So we have given a provision to create a certificate authority so that you can create your own custom CAs and don't have to worry about the security concerns. So here you can enter the name. Enter the name of the CA. Suppose we add some debut CA, it will be acting as the root CA for our organizations, and the cluster, we can select here from the cluster on which you want to deploy it. Actually, we have created a network. The concept of the you can say that the namespaces in our Kubernetes cluster, where we are separating a workspaces from one another based on the network name, and we have also deployed a TLS-CA which will act as TLS-CA for all the entities in our network. And from here, we can create the root CA. We can select the cluster where we want to deploy our CA in the form of a pod, which will use the official Hyperledger Fabric CA image to deploy a pod. Here we can enter the admin ID and the admin secret. These admin IDs and admin secrets are those IDs and secret are of a registrar whose we will use, whose certificates we will use to enroll all the certain identities down the hierarchy. This is going to act as an registrar. So over to you.
Yeah. Yeah. And Arun, you can also show the solo and draft services which are supported through Fabdep 2.0.
Yes. So this is the screen from where you can create an ordering service. As you know, the ordering service is important to convert all the incoming transaction into blocks. So right now there are two kind of provision. The first one is the raft and another one is the solo. But solo is not recommended for production network. So we are using a raft. What we are doing here is we are deploying a 5 order nodes directly onto the cluster so that we can create a consensus algorithm based on raft, where automatically one of the participant from those 5 nodes will be elected as a leader based on its health, and the rest of the nodes will be selected as a follower. Suppose if the leader loses health due to some reasons, then the one of the follower will take on the job of a leader and start serving the ordering services. So we can be sure that our ordering service is crash fault tolerance. So what we can do is we can write down the name of the ordering service, like debut ordering service, and we can select base draft, and again we can select the organizations whom which we gonna bind this that we have created earlier, the organization name and MSC ID, those which we have to relate this particular draft. And here we can select the certain consortium members. Like I have just created example like FedEx and Walmart. And then if we create OK, then our service will start creating. Yes.
Yeah. And you can also show about the deployment of the smart contracts.
Yes. So here is the listing for the smart contract. All the management, all the chain code management which a normal operators need to do is managed by our Fabdep tool, starting from the installation of chain code on the certain number of peers within the organization or within our network topology is handled by our tools. So we can, here is our screen. From here we can give the name of the chain code. We can give the version of our chain code, and we can select the language type. Either we have develop the chain code in Go language or in Node.js. And again, we can browse the file, chain code file from here. We support zip files, and from here we can serve the consortium members on which we want to install this particular chain code. And from here we can select certain number of peers, certain combination of peers that we want to endorse our transaction. So we can install this chain code on them. Here is the one that I have already installed, and by clicking here you can instantiate the chain code, and at the same time you can also upgrade. So virtually from from the process starting from the installation to instantiation and upgrade, all the process is handled by Fabdep automatically, and you don't have to do anything, and you don't have to use CLIs in order to achieve this particular functionality.
Mm-hmm.
Over to you, Rubal.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you, Arun. So, guys, these were a few of the features of Fabdep 2.0, but I would reiterate the most important feature which we have right now is that you are able to deploy enterprise level, blockchain network on your preferred cloud using Kubernetes. So you are not tied up to any service provider. Like if you're using companies ABC tool, then they kind of, bind you or they compel you to use their cloud space or servers. But with Fabdep, you are easily able to, make your deployment on the cloud network of your choice. So there is no vendor lock-in. You have complete control over your identities, ledgers, smart contracts. And there are certain other things that we are working on right now, and these are under development. To name a few, these are like Java-based chain code, private data collections, revoking and re-enrolling entities. Now, this is something which is not present in the Fabdep 2.0 version, but this has been requested by our clients and also the developers who are using Fabdep right now. So this is something that we are working on, and the next cut would be out in around 4 to 6 week period. Uh, Again, we are also including performance metrics for the Hyperledger network in the upcoming version of our tool Fabdep. And yeah, if you can please show the references are on the very last slide, and then we can probably take the questions. So this is our marketing page, fabricdeployer.com. You can go over there, read about the tool, and at the same time, you will be able to see all the features. You will also be able to download the tool. And in case you face any trouble, please join our channel, Rocket Chat channel, which is chat.fabricdep.com. And over there, you will get all the development, all the community support which you need. And again, please feel free to reach out to us on email, or this is our cell number in case you need any assistance with regards to installation of Fabdep or use of Fabdep, or in case you want to try out the Fabdep's enterprise version in terms of you want to know the costing and what all goes behind the scenes. So thank you everyone, once again. It's been a privilege presenting our tool here, and I'm sorry for the technical difficulties we faced, but we will submit this presentation to the panelists, and probably it will be available online pretty soon. And yeah, we are open to questions, guys.
Hey Rubal, there are a couple of questions on Q&A portal, if you could pick up. So the first question is, does Fabdep support setting endorsement policy at the time of instantiation?
Yeah, Arun,
Yes,
can you please
absolutely.
take that?
Yes, absolutely. Let me, if I will share my screen, that you can see here the endorsement policy here.
Mm-hmm. Would you like to explain a bit on that to answer the question?
Yes. So while instantiating chain code, as we all know, it's compulsory that we have to give endorsement policy. Otherwise, it default policy, which is set up by the Hyperledger, takes on. So here we can select. We can go here. We can create. We can select a channel. We can select a function that which we want to instantiate. Suppose if we have while writing a chain code, we have done some initialization. We have to call something for initialization purpose, then we can give this init function here, and we can give the arguments that we want to give here. At the same time, we can select the endorsement policy, that is the normal and or. Right now we have two provision and or, but if someone wants to go in advance and set those possible endorsement policy in advanced level, then there is a feature which generally takes a JSON format, which is recommended and is also published on the Hyperledger Fabric document. You can paste that JSON here, then you will get all the advanced endorsement feature policies here. So virtually everything is being managed by our tool.
Thank you. And Rubal, there is
And
another question. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I just want to add over here that to the panelists, we will share our Calendarly link. So basically, any of the attendees or participants who are willing or interested to have a live demo of the product, like I said, it would take around 35 to 40 minutes. So we'll share that link, and in case you want to book a session with us, you can do that. And yes, I see the next question, and I'll type it down over window. Mr. Ashish Kumar, I'll share that with you.
Thank you, team. Thank you, WInfotech team. And attendees, if you have more questions, then please feel free to reach out to the team, the WInfotech team. And for our next presentation, due to slight technical difficulty, we do not have our next presentation available today. Arya Uttomo, who was supposed to join us from Malaysia, is not available for the presentation. And what we have up next is for our next week's Saturday session. And we again want to thank all our speakers this week. It was another great presentation, another great session from all the speakers. And for our next week, these are the topics which we can expect from our speakers. We will share the recording of today's session on YouTube. We will post it out. We will send an email reminder. We will post it also on the wiki page, also on our Hyperledger India Chapter LinkedIn page. And for the next week's presentations as well, we will be sharing it on the LinkedIn, and we'll be promoting, sending email soon. Thank you all for attending today's session. And we all see you in a week.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Take care.